And today, stage 16 Laas to Santa Cristina Valgardena, Monte Pana, 118.7 kilometers, but that's not what was on schedule. That's not what we had planned for today, folks. But it is what we ended up doing. Remember, we were going to go over the Stelvio today. Then they were concerned about going all the way to the top. Why? Because there was an avalanche warning and they weren't able to get trucks and machinery up there to actually scoop off the road and make it passable. Rain, weather protocol, chaos ensues, and what we get is a shortened stage. So maybe we should just take a, and then we have multiple things that happen. RCS, that's the group that runs the Giro. Total confusion. Riders not sure what happens. I mean, I wake up and race isn't going, and I'm on the West Coast. Typically, those races are starting quite early, and then nothing happens. And then it starts, and it's like the first. And it's only 118, and I'm like, what's going on? And so I started to do a bunch of looking into it. And I actually watched Eurosport from the start going through, and they were, at one point, they're just like, event ended, and it was blue screen. And then there's, because I didn't think they were sure what was going to happen. It was going to be a riders' protest. It was all kinds of stuff going on. And we'll look at some of that. I don't know that I want to get into it too much, other than the race did go on. We did have a winner. We did have a bit of a shakeup. And you see this coming out of a few things. One, coming out of the rest day, where your leg's going to be after you've had the time trial. You had this Queen stage. It just blasted everybody. You had riders spending 2 nights at altitude. So that's another issue about sleep and recovery. And then you have bad weather. Now, bad weather can affect riders differently. And we talked about this on stage 15, which is we went up and over and up to Livigno, and it was snow all around. We have a snow skiers jumping over Pogacar. I was going to show that video, and I didn't do it. Maybe we'll still do that. Jumping over Pogacar on the climb up there. There's snow all around, but the weather is gorgeous. And so you're like, hey, one little bit of rain, it could, and you're in the mountains. It turns to snow up here, people. That's what the weather was planned for. So RCS needed at some point to have plan A, B, and C in place. I think they have those, and then they're confused, and then the riders push back in a revolt, and you're just like, people, come on. Maybe let's take a look here at kind of where I don't want to look at the results yet, but let's take a look at the route that ended up going. Okay, so I don't have a breakdown of the map that we should have had, but this is after the Stelvio and then what you would have seen, and then there it is. So remember, it was going to be like 100 kilometers downhill or so, and then you have this kicker going up here, and the last 30-some kilometers were pretty nasty. So it was going to be that kind of a day. And so I don't know if you can see the route necessarily through here, but anyway, the last climb did have some steep parts on it. So you assumed you were going to still have, a decent, some action. So let me see if I could find, because I did find this one. Where'd it go? Here we go. Let's take a look at this. I don't know if I could necessarily play this. I don't want to get a copyright strike here, but I thought this was somewhat interesting. We'll turn the volume off here. So this is, actually we're going to play some of this stuff here. This is, this guy took a bunch of these videos kind of from the different parts of the race. So this is at the start here. I mean, umbrella, pink umbrella for Pogacar.
Gee, how's it going there?
Thomas.
Beautiful.
Snow,
Right, eh?
sleet.
Just like being home.
So Peter. Some more weather conditions. I mean, this is the confusion, though, right? And then Bora. I mean, it's snow. Danny Martinez is like, this doesn't happen in Colombia.
Oh, way.
Schachmann. It does happen in Germany, though. I don't know what they're looking at there.
Estamos en el kilómetro 11 y desde el kilómetro 2 lo único que vemos es nieve.
Yeah, this is the climb. This is Alberto Contador. Let me just say this about him. So they showed some of this, and he had a special part for Eurosport where he's up there in the snow, and evidently they couldn't go over the top, and then they're kind of stuck up there. So you're like, cars can't do it, bikes are going to have trouble doing it. Also, this version here is in Spanish. The one I saw on Eurosport was in English. Exactly the same though. I had no clue what he was saying in English, and still no clue what he's saying in Spanish. So well done, Eurosport. You know, today they actually had Adam Blythe on the back of the moto, and I saw Benji from Lantern Rouge saying, "Oh, you know, I actually like. I'm growing to like Adam Blythe more and more, especially on the motorbike." And someone replied, "Why is that?" And I had to chime in because he speaks English. Because half the time you had Daniel Oss on there, no clue what he's saying. You had Jens Voigt. Even when you understand the words that he's saying, you don't understand what he's saying because he doesn't really speak in whole sentences or in typical ways that normal people think. He's just a little bit delusional. I shouldn't be that mean, but I am, because that's kind of Jens Voigt. So it was nice to hear Adam Blythe on there where I actually understood what he's saying. Now, Tyler, these are, you know, you're in Europe and yeah, okay. But this is an English-speaking channel, not this one here, but, well, this is too, but Eurosport. So give me a break. Daniel Oss is much better. Jens Voigt, much better. Adam Blythe, at least you can understand what he's saying. Contador? Come on.
Son complicadas, son
Once again, no clue. Look, the point is there's snow there. The Tudor team showing more bad weather. These guys are all going. I wish I had a Castelli jacket. Okay, is the race going? So there's the stage. We can take a look here. Here was the Stelvio, and this is going to be the highest point, even when they were going to cut it off and not go to the top. Instead, they decided to move all the way over to this spot and go from here. Now, the team buses were supposed to be at the finish. There was word that they weren't actually there. So problems all around. Okay, so now you got some of that drama. And here's part of the problems you had, which is RCS is got different plans of what they want to do, and then they're going to go over the mountains, and then the riders are all saying, we're going to revolt, we're not going to do this. So it's a shit show completely. And you know what, we just want to see a bike race. And so and by the way, you still have time gaps possible at the finish. You still have a hard ride. And I understand a lot of the sprinters maybe didn't want to do any of this. They could control themselves in the descent. But the GC guys are going to have to race. And by the way, I saw this on Lantern Rouge this morning where they were talking about like riders voting this and this. Well, yeah, sprinters are going to say, oh, we don't want to do this race. But, you know, you don't get GC riders when it's bad weather being able to vote on the sprint stages. It's like, hey, it's a dangerous finish. We don't want to do this. They'd be like, come on, guys. So, you know, it's what it is. It's cycling, and I wish they would get their shit together. Now, you see these things at local races, sure, and they're not sure what to do. They should have all these things planned out. I understand the Stelvio was actually pushed down and wasn't going to be allowed to do, like we talked about earlier, by the government. Either the local or whatever it is that manages that there has said, no, this was too dangerous to be even going over, so it wasn't even RCS that did that. But your typical shit that you get to see here with these riders. So now, the problem I have, and I was actually a little bit late on starting this video today because I was looking online. I was trying to get, and let's see if I can find it here. I was trying to get any kind of highlights for this race for us to walk through, and unfortunately no one has put them up yet. There was the last 1.5 kilometers of let me see, Giro stage. Let's see if they put it up yet. 16 highlights, and they did like the last nope, they have a race finish, they have this, they don't have the highlights up yet. And if you look at this, it's like, oh, here's the highlights. Oh, that was from last year, and then oh, it's from the year before. And by the way, stage 16, not good weather historically, at least the last several years, for the Tour of Italy. So let me walk through, because we go to the last little bit here, but maybe we'll walk through kind of like as it happened from the Cycling Weekly. We'll look at here at the standings going into today. As we know, Tadej 6:41 over Geraint Thomas. Geraint Thomas just 15 seconds over Danny Martinez. Then inside 40 seconds or 50 seconds or so to Ben O'Connor at 7:43. That's from Danny Martinez, but 7:43 back from Tadej. Tiberi's at 9:27, Arnsman at 9:45, Bardet 10:49, Filippo Zana 11:11, Eidner Rubio 12:13, Jan Hurt at 13:11. I just want to make some notes here. Roman Bardet 10:49 at 7th place. Arjan's been 9:45, almost 10 minutes out. And how far is he off the podium? He's, he got 7 minutes. I mean, he's almost 3 minutes just even off of the 3 minutes off of the podium. Okay. He's, easily 3 minutes off of Geraint Thomas. So, is he going to surpass him? Just keep some of those things in mind today at Ben O'Connor 7:43. So he's 2 minutes off of Ben O'Connor. I get it. We've got a ways to go here. But keep that in mind when you get some of the tactics that go through here. So here's a little bit of the discussion. Prior meetings discussion do not align with EWP extreme weather protocol guidelines under UCI regulations or ethics of the sport, especially given the current forecast. The letter read, riders aim to compete and to entertain, not to face the situation where they must stop at an altitude of 2498 meters in a car, park, change clothes in 2-degree weather with a likelihood of snow, and then continue. Such conditions pose significant health risks, particularly during the descent of the Umbrail Pass. It is 2024. Stopping and restarting races in such conditions is unacceptable, as one DS put it. This will be a shit show. Okay, so this was part of the stuff that was going back and forth because they were saying, okay, we'll go up and over that climb and then we'll have you change your clothes. It's so stupid. And by the way, if you remember back a few years, I mentioned it just yesterday, which was they had I don't know if it was the Stelvio or the Motorola, one of these big climbs that they went over the top of, and they wanted to neutralize it. So they had red flags out there, and they're saying it's going to be a neutralized descent because you'd think that was the dangerous part. No. Nairo Quintana takes off and attacks everybody on the descent, and they're like, well, but it's neutralized. He ends up, getting a bunch of time. And in the end, they ruled, well, the flags it was neutral over the top. Well, what's the point? It's the dumbest ruling ever. But, that's kind of the shit. That's what you expect here kind of out of some of the stuff in. Okay, so there's Nairo on stage 16. There's the pass. We'll take a look. We're going to walk through. Finally going to have a start here at some point. I just wanted to get to kind of the early breaks when they first started to go. So Frigo, he takes off. The race starts. Frigo jumps up there. There's a few guys going with him. Juan Lopez, Kevin Vermark, he's going up there. Then we finally get Julian Alaphilippe, Ballerini. They go up the road. Then there was a bit of a mess. Mirko Maestri, remember him, and Polte Cometa, he was up the road with Alaphilippe. At one point, Piccolo was up there as well. It was Alaphilippe, Maestri, David Ballerini, Andrea Piccolo, who was almost an hour behind on yesterday's stage. At some point, Alaphilippe decides he's going to have it go at it, and he sets off his course up the road. Now, one of the problems you then have, there's a nice picture of the guys going through the rain. Just it's pouring. I mean, it sucks in every which way possible. I don't know if they're wearing velotos or what they're doing here, but keep your feet dry best you can. It's time to have some good Castelli shit. There was a little bit of a view of the mountain. Anyway, Frenchman goes solo in the rain. It's absolutely. Alaphilippe has no gloves. He's freezing. There's Geraint Thomas. He looks cold. No one looks like they're having a good time. There you go. Alaphilippe at one point, he's riding big chain reading up front, big chain reading in the back. But that last climb is about 35 kilometers of up and down. It has some pitches, some KOMs, dropping down, then going back up. For the most part, though, it's all going uphill. But what was interesting is that at some point you had Movistar doing a lot of work up the front. They're literally chasing down, making sure this break is staying within close quarters, and you're like, okay, maybe they're going to set something up for Nairo Quintana. And then Paleo Sanchez takes a big dig, and he goes up the road. And you're like, okay, that's interesting because the team's still in the front. Now Nairo's on the front, going hard for Anya Rumio, who's what 12th place or so? We saw 9th place maybe up there. And so you're like, okay, that's interesting. And then Sanchez is coming back to the group, and then he tries to take off again because he's on the front sitting there, and then he just rides away from them again. And you're like, I don't understand what's going on. Then you had Nairo just taking off. So now Rubio's on the front, and he's like, I don't fucking want to do this. I think that's when the split happened between Sanchez and that. So Sanchez goes up the road again. And then it looks like maybe he had an issue with his shifting because it looks like he was stuck in the big ring and he wasn't able to drop that down. And he's doing a big ring move up this climb. He then sits up, takes his chain off, gets dropped by the group, and you're like, this is exactly what we expected from Movistar. So about 2 kilometers to go. Alaphilippe is caught. This is what we're going to read. Scaroni was up there. Pellizzari for Bade. So what you had at this point, the last 10 or so kilometers, 15, you started seeing these Bardiani riders going up the road, these Polti-Cometi riders going up the road. Then you saw an Astana rider up the road, Scaroni, Pellizzari, he's with Bardani, Castu, he's with Sancic. And then you got, a kilometer and a half or so back there, you had Pogacar. And that's when you started to see Ben O'Connor struggle. Then Pogacar goes, and Pogacar takes off, and we will take a look at the video. I think I have that of the last kilometer and a half or so, so we can at least enjoy what. Now, once again, we're not going to play it. We're just going to skip our way through. But at 1.2 kilometers, Pogacar has already taken off. Now, it's hard to see here if you can tell. Maybe we'll get right here a little bit further in. You can just see Danny Martinez in the background trying to make his way up there to Pogacar. But Pogacar, he looks like he's sailing, but there wasn't any hard attacks. And then the group behind is just kind of blowing up. So Pellizzari is still up the road. He's the youngest rider in the race for Italy, a Bardani team. And at some point, Pogacar looks like he's just going to be reeling him in, which he is actually doing. But he's not going what I would say super hard. I don't know if the day is just draining everybody out or if Pogacar just looks so good that it makes it look like he's allowing this kid to maybe stay up the front. But he's got to do what he's got to do. Damiano Caruso is getting dropped. Geraint Thomas is getting dropped. Tiberi's having trouble. Ben O'Connor's having trouble. But what you don't see is, well, you could kind of see it here, is Ineos. Now, this is a kilometer, but it started a few kilometers behind, okay? I saw a little bit of analysis this morning where they're like, hey, Arnsman can't do anything for him, okay? It's steep climbs. You don't get any drafts. There's not much you can do. And it was just, the short last bit of distance on the climb anyway. I call bullshit. Once again, we talked about this. He's 3 minutes behind him. You just don't leave him. You stay back there and you pace. Pacing on a climb is actually a very big deal. And Thomas knows how to do that. You just get him on there and maybe you just ramp just a tad bit and you just keep always on that tether where that rubber band's just starting to stretch. And Geraint Thomas might have been able to pull himself back, but instead he's got to just to do his own time. Maybe that's fine, but if Arnsman's able to go harder, why aren't you just back there looking after your team captain? It doesn't make any sense. And once again, there's things like this where Thomas has to come around people. He goes around Tiberi, he goes around Caruso, but up front you have Pogacar trying to bring in Pellizzari, and it looks like it's going to do it. And he's not hammering to do so, but he finally does make the bridge inside the last kilometer. Now you've got Arnsman up here. He's trying to bring down. He's going hard. He's trying to bring back Costo, and once again, 0.7. Tadej finally goes past him. Doesn't blaze past him, but goes past him good enough. Tiberi starts to recover a bit, making his way back up to the front group. All along, though, I don't understand what this is, but you got Pogacar with no arms on. Pretty good for him. He wins the stage quite nicely. 2 hours, 49 minutes, almost 3 hours in the saddle for the wet. Danny Martinez is the only one from the back group. He made it look good. He was pushing on strong. He's coming back here, 6 seconds behind at one point here, but Pellizzari actually makes it a strong showing and beats him out in the sprint, which I was actually pretty glad that happened. Only losing 14 seconds on the day is Danny Martinez. And then you had Scaroni coming back here. He's looking fine. I think that's Tiberi that's come across next. And then you have Arnsman. Look at that. Arnsman just shattering. Dropping Thomas, nicely done there. 36 seconds, but he was trying to keep his way up there, I think, with Tiberi. Then you have a few more guys coming through. Geraint Thomas finally comes through. Ben O'Connor comes through as well. Oh, there's Geraint. Geraint's even further back. So Geraint's, 50 seconds on the day. And what did we say? Where was Arnsman here? 37 seconds. So I think that's kind of shitty, personally, and I just don't think it's what you do. Brian says, don't get me started on the Bobby Yenzi podcast. Terrible. Okay, I agree. Tadej Pogacar, awesome pro cyclist. Yeah, Tadej, and look, then there was a nice little situation. Pellizzari comes over to him, and in the tent, comes over to Tadej, and it looked, he's like, comes to talk to him, and Tadej's going to give him a big hug, and he's like, like, hey, I want to exchange sunglasses. And so Taddy starts to take off the sunglasses, gives him those, takes off his jersey too, and gives him the jersey, and they have a nice big embracing hug. And I appreciated that. And then, you know, Taddy, and we'll listen to his comments here, but it's that stuff where he's like almost apologizing. You know, Rafael Micah, they're saying, we didn't mean to go for it, but, you know, when the day at the end, and I'm just like, I'm sick of this. I don't care if you're trying to, I get it. You're trying to like do the whole thing where it's like, you know, ingratiate yourself to someone. Polazari got caught. He had to sprint his way. He'd been up off this. He's this young rider, Bardiani. I mean, that would have been an amazing win for him. And what was his reaction? His reaction wasn't to yell and be all upset that how dare Pogacar not give me this race, or not, you know, why isn't he more generous? His reaction was, oh my God, I got second to Tadej. This guy is a legend. He's now won 5 stages in this Giro. I'm going to go up and I'm going to see if he'll exchange sunglasses. He gave me a hug. He gave me a jersey. That is enduring. And now I'm like, I love that Pellizzari guy. That's good. You didn't cuck out like so many of these the other guys and the journalists. And where is it that we're such pussies in this world where we insist that this guy give us races and not do the race? I love this. I want to see this. You know what? Sometimes it's boring racing. Today I haven't found this Giro boring, even with the long launching that's happened with Tadej. You know, Strada Bianca is somewhat boring, but at some point you're just like, now all of this is said assuming Tadej is clean, okay? If he's clean, I'm like, then we got to get our shit together. We got to do better here. Danny Martinez coming good, showing a much better race here, 15 seconds off. Awesome, I loved it. Geraint Thomas, once again, I talked about the JV team. I don't think Geraint Thomas is a JV rider, but in terms of Tadej, Jonas, Pogacar, Evenepoel, he is a JV rider in comparison to those. But he's retiring, 35, 6 years old, so he's going to be out the door here in a second. You know, life is just different for him than it is for these young guys. And I don't have any problems with Tadej winning. Matter of fact, I'm enjoying it. I wasn't always a big Tadej fan. Then you saw Jonas and Pogacar, what they did to Sepp at the Tour, the Vuelta last year, and I'm like, I'm switching. And now I've been really enjoying him this year, and I don't have a problem with really what's going on here. This Giro. Okay, let's take a look at the results and break a little bit of that down for what we just saw. There we go. So on the break, look, Daniel Martinez loses 16 seconds. Scaroni, he's not a GP. Antonio Taberi comes back and ends up, only 33 seconds down. Tymon Armstrong loses 5 seconds to Taberi on the white jersey. Wow. That's obviously, is that Ineos's goal? Is that their goal, or is it to keep Geraint Thomas in the top 3? Because, and by the way, I'm saying all this stuff, and I watched the interview with Arnsman afterwards, and I couldn't tell if he had the green light to go. I don't know if Geraint Thomas told him to do so. I just think that is bad team riding, and I think that is bad management to do that, because one, you just got to get your team in the mindset of not having these split alliances and to do what you can. You don't know what would have happened. Maybe you would have drawn Geraint Thomas back, even if Geraint's like, go. I don't know that that's been the wise thing for Geraint to be saying either, unless you don't want to really have your third place overall. So I'm a little disappointed in some of that, and maybe it's just me calling it the way I see it, though. Let's try to go back here. Let's see. Here we go. Thomas loses down here, and Kevin Vermaak down here ways. I saw Will Barta was on the front for a while doing the stupid work for Movistar. Matter of fact, we should even look and see. Let's go to all teams. Let's go to Movistar here and see Einar Rubio. He lost 46 seconds. Okay, so he was 11th place, so all that work. Paleo Sanchez, he lost 4:31. I just don't understand what they were doing today, but good for them. Let's see if Einar Rubio moved up in the placings here. He was 11th overall. Let's go to GC, and let's go, not H2H, time one loss. There we go. So Danny Martinez loses 22 seconds because he had time bonuses. Geraint Thomas, 59 seconds. 59 for Ben O'Connor. Those two come in together. 43 for Taberi. 48 for Arnsman. Roman Bardet had a bad day. I forgot to mention that. He started getting popped on that climb early and had to make some comebacks. And at one point, only losing 129. Actually, that's good because he was about that far off of the peloton at one point. So he made a great move coming back and actually only losing 129 in the day. Filippo Zanem loses 132. 56 seconds to Einer Rubio. So, yeah, what was that? I mean, he comes in there with Geraint Thomas, so he doesn't really do much. For Tortonado, 119, 52 for Storer. Pagnazzoli, 126, and then, Simon Geschke and these guys back down here a little bit. Not too concerned about that. The points race, Jonathan Milan still winning that. The KOM, Tadej, although you saw Scaroni move up ahead of Geschke. And look, to me, I'm like, at least Scaroni was up in the mix today, right? He had a chance at actually winning the stage. You don't see that from Simon Geschke. So at least get someone in that jersey, at least going to wear it, even though Tadej is going to win it. The youth, Tiberi, now he lost 5 seconds today to Arnsman, but he's still 24 seconds in advance. Filippo Zana, he's 234 down. I don't see him doing much, but, podium on the white jersey might be a thing. Team Decathlon still winning big over Ineos. So there you go. Let's take a look at tomorrow's stage, and then we can be done. All right, stage 17. Once again, this is all premised off of the possibility that this may not happen due to weather. Okay, so we have a weather protocol today, and they're still trying to go in the mountains. Matter of fact, they're going into the Dolomites even more. So snow, rain can still happen. By the way, look. I'm not saying you can predict weather years in advance, right? As a lot of people are doing out there, especially in politics. But what you can predict pretty good is the weather several days in advance. Maybe a 5-day forecast. One of my good friends I used to do a lot of racing with and lived with him when I was in Colorado. His dad was the weatherman in New Orleans. And he used to say, he goes, look, they always want to do these 7-day forecasts. He's like, that's bullshit. You can't predict the weather very good 7 days in advance. But you can really do it fairly well 3, 4, and 5 days, okay? Understand that little bit closer, a little better. Now, I'm not a meteorologist or a weatherman, as I would call him, and he didn't like that. But what I'm saying is they should be able to know what's going to happen somewhat for the weather in these regions coming up. So they should have plans in place, and maybe we will or we won't get it. But here you go tomorrow, assuming that it's going to happen. 9 kilometers is 7.3 right out of the gate. This is a great day for a breakaway, especially bad weather. I'll just say this about bad weather. When bad weather happens, there's already guys racing out there in their minds. They're shut down. They're like, this isn't for me. I'm scared of the downhill. I don't want to crash. I hate this. They've already lost, okay? And so you've already eliminated a lot of riders just on your mindset about how it's going to be in that day. And then there's different ones that ride well, accidents and stuff that happen. And then there's climbing. You've already eliminated half, 2/3 of the field just because of the way that the climbing is going. I mean, like this one, it's not going to be a breakaway day for anybody else that can climb it. It ends in a Cat 1. But if it's bad weather, you've already eliminated some of those guys that don't even want to go out and play. So this one we have scheduled to tomorrow, 159 kilometers, not super long, but you've got a Cat 2, a Cat 1, a Cat 3, a Cat 2, and ending on another Cat 1. Are we going to see stage 6? Stage 1 for Tadej, and then the next day after that, maybe a sprinter's day, and maybe they will or won't call that one good for that. Okay, that, my man, my folks, my peeps, is what we have for today. So stage 16, disappointing in the organization, disappointing in, I'm not disappointed in Movistar's riding because they continue to entertain us. I'm a little disappointed in Arnsman and what he did. I don't believe that you should ever be, especially when you're 3 minutes back, you do what you can to help that guy stay on the podium when you're so close and there is a race for second place. Danny Martinez looked great today, and I foresee more and more coming out of him today, this race. He does race well in the bad weather. We've seen that with Bernal several years ago when he raced with him and got top 5 in the Giro. So he can do it, and I expect more out of him. I would like to see him compete a little bit with Tadej. I'd like to see one stage, maybe tomorrow, where Danny feels good and he can maybe put in an attack rather than Tadej putting in the attacks. But once again, I don't have a problem with Tadej winning. I don't have a problem with him showing his might at all. All right, everybody. Thanks. Till tomorrow. Stage 17.
Froome now, he goes on the offensive, he goes on the attack over the top of this final climb, and nobody at the moment can go with him.
He had 75 kilometres to go, and now under the Flamme Rouge, there he is, still the virtual Maglia Rosa on the road. Who would have thought it at the start of today? But Chris Froome, masterful performance.